now. That's perfect. Thanks, Ajit.
Okay. Well, good afternoon to all of you, and a big thank you for joining us for this session. My name is Nana Hum, and I am going to share my screen right now. Okay. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see it, Nana. We just need to full screen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me
Thank
just,
you.
okay.
Yes.
So I'm just going to use my video so you can just focus on the presentation.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Can you see full screen now?
Yeah, yes, we can see it. Perfect. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you too. Okay, so as I mentioned, my name is Nana Halm and I am a program officer at the TISC Development Section here at WIPO. Today, I'm just going to go through some information to share with you on patent information and its value and uses. And here are our learning objectives. So basically, we're going to identify the functions of the patent system. And then after that, we're going to describe how the information that we retrieve from patent documents can actually be used. So a little bit of a history, if you will. Just to explain a little bit about the patent system. We've got two lanes, if you will, with respect to the patent system. We talk about protection, which is where you are granted an exclusive right on your invention. And then we've also got disclosure, where you make the technical information available through your patent documents. And what we get in the end is a balance of innovation and economic growth. So here I'm just going to explain a little bit about the nature of the two lanes that I talked about right now. When we talk about protection, we're talking about territoriality. Okay, I'm sure all of you understand that intellectual property in general is a territorial right. So basically, where you start protection or where the applicant chooses to protect the invention or the innovation is where you start the protection. So, for example, one of you from your institutions comes up with a rainmaking machine, okay? And you decide that you're going to protect it first in India. So that is what happens. It's territorially protected in India to begin with, okay? Of course, later on, one of my colleagues is going to explain about the PCT, where you're going to find out that you can also be, you are able to, at the point of protection, select different countries within which you want your patent to be protected. But to begin with, the protection starts with the national country, so the territory where it first begins. On the other hand, with respect to disclosure, it's global. Basically, whatever you put in your patent document, that is where that is basically going to be disclosed to the world at large. So basically, whatever you put out there can never be taken back. With protection, we talk about a time-limited protection period. So basically, a patent is protected from for 20 years from the date of application. Okay, so after the 20 years, it falls into the public domain and it becomes knowledge for, well, everyone, all of us out here. And then, of course, linked to that is the information that you provide in your patent document becomes permanent. Again, information that you give cannot be taken back. When we look at the protection lane, we're talking about claims. So basically, let's say I'm going to use this example of a rainmaking machine, okay? So let's say some parts of India, you know, there are problems with rain, perhaps farmers are struggling perhaps with getting rain for their crops, etc. So what happens is the claims in the patent document discusses what this problem is. Okay, so basically there's a problem out there, there's a technological need for there to be a resolution to this problem. So your claims will define precisely what protection you are seeking. What we are not trying to do is to reinvent the wheel. And by that, we want to make sure that your claims are precise. So what exactly does this patent do? And what exactly are you seeking protection over? So the claims under the protection lane is only to do with the claims. However, for disclosure, we're dealing with the full document, right? So it's not just the claims that are applicable for the information that is provided in the patent document. It is everything that is every information that comes out from the full disclosure in the patent document. So what does this do? There's a balance then of the exclusive right that is given to the patent owner and a learning opportunity for the rest of the world. So basically, we are going to try to build on information, on technology that has already been created or has already been protected. So what I'm going to do will be to go through quite a few scenarios, okay? Right now, what I want you to do is to just think about the field that you're working in, okay, whether it's business, policy, academia. Sorry? Did someone
No,
say
ma'am, we are
something?
sorry. Please,
Oh,
please carry on.
it's okay. It happens all the time. Okay. Okay. So my first scenario is this. I want us to imagine that we're a research laboratory, okay? And we're trying to develop new wind turbine controller technologies. And of course, to prevent us from reinventing the wheel, to prevent us from doing something that has already been done, we want to then do a bit of research to figure out what has already been done, okay? We don't want to redo what has already been done. So we then go to our table, to our working table, okay? And we figure out, okay, before we start on this journey, we are going to have to create an effective patent search strategy, okay? We need to identify key concepts. We need to figure out the structure. We need to identify key terms. So key terms or search terms are, let's say, for example, so we're looking for information out there on rainmaking machines. I'm using a very, very basic description of what the invention is, but I'm sure technologically speaking, there could be different descriptions of this invention. Okay, so the key terms or the search terms would be terms that you know you will find in the document. In the beginning, you're going to want to have as much information as you can. However, there's going to have to be a delicate balance between certain terms that you use that you want to find in the document, because you also don't want to come out with millions of patent documents through this search. So it would be important to then discuss amongst yourselves, okay, so we know we want a document, we want a patent that is going to look at certain technologies that perhaps you are using or you are intending to use in your patent application, okay? So key terms will then obviously direct you a bit more to your patent documents, which will then deliver your results. So if you will, at the beginning of your search, I want you to imagine a funnel, a funnel, right? It starts big and then it turns out to be very small at the end. You will start big because you're not too sure which areas or which documents, which patents are going to help you in your search. So what you want to do is you don't want to prevent yourself from getting access to these documents. And so what you will want to do will be to start big, and then eventually, as you use more relevant terms, you become smaller, your search becomes smaller, and then hopefully it will get you to precise documents or precise research, precise information in certain patent documents that will be relevant for your patent searches. Okay, so here we have an example of a system and method for supervising and controlling fan field. Remember, we're looking at wind turbine technologies. The first thing we notice is CN. Beginning, CN is for China, okay? So we look here, we see, okay, well, there's certain information. English, the title in English is a system and method for supervising and controlling fan field. However, the Chinese version is in Chinese, and I don't know about you, but a lot of us out there will not be able to understand. And so here is the actual patent document, which, if you remember what I said in the beginning, we look at territoriality at the beginning of a patent application. So this patent was first protected in China. Okay, so it makes sense that it will have the documents, the claims, etc., in Chinese. However, what we will also see is that at the end, excuse me, at the end, as we go through the document, we see that the document was also published in India, in the EPO and the US. Okay, so what it basically says is that the same document can then be found in the EPO or even the USPTO, which means that it is then translated into English. So you can then use the information, understand what is in there, etc. Before we move on, though, what I want to make sure that you understand is that with a patent document, okay, just because the initial document is in a different language that you do not understand, does not mean that it is not going to be relevant for your search. Okay, so as you, and I will explain this later on, but you will understand that what I said earlier on with respect to disclosure, it's global. Okay, so whatever falls in the global sphere is what we call prior art. Prior art being all the information relevant to a specific technology, what is already out there in the open or in the world. Okay, so you have to remember that just because the patent document is in a different language does not necessarily mean that it's not relevant to what you are doing. And so it is important to make sure that you get access to that in, English or whatever other language are relevant for you to be able to understand what is in the document. So a patent document, why is it relevant? So as I mentioned a bit earlier on, the patent document basically is a little manual on what an invention is, what the invention is meant to resolve, and basically also gives you the background information. So I had given an example of the rainmaking machine. Okay, what is the problem? There's a problem. Farmers suffer, dry spells during these periods in the year. Because of that, there's the direct link to the production of their crops. Because of that, there's a direct link to the production of these crops into society. So basically, there's less food. So we go back to the problem. This problem needs to be resolved. Okay, there is always a connection with the problem and a connection to the end result. So I had already explained what is already there in the public domain. Okay, prior art, what is already there, and what do we not want to redo? So I talked about technical information earlier on. So why is it so important? So basically, we talked about the two aspects or the two lanes of the patent system. We talked about the protection aspect and we talked about the disclosure aspect. Okay, so disclosure, why is that so important? We're talking about a situation where at the end of the application, the patent owner gets the right, the exclusive right to exploit the patent. But then we also say that there is a learning opportunity for the world, okay? Because the disclosure is global and the information stays out there permanently. So what we're trying to do is to ensure that society is able to build on what has already been built or what has already been done. Okay, I'm not going to do a rainmaking machine again if it's already been done. However, it is possible that I may take a little part of that technology and perhaps tweak it So that's also a possibility. So technical information, we talk about the fact that it has to be clear. It has to be clear enough for someone, the person who is called a person having ordinary skill in the art. So who is that person? That person is an expert, typically in this specific area of the technology. So I'm not sure which technological field a rainmaking machine would come into, but let's just say that there was already a market, an industry that deals with rainmaking machines. Okay, so this person has to be a typical expert in this area, where they can read the disclosure and the claims that has been put in the patent application, to be able to replicate this information to, again, get the invention to carry out, right? So basically, if we're saying that we want to make sure that we're building on information or technologies that are already in the public domain, what we're trying to do is to make sure that there are actually experts who can carry this out. Otherwise, it's futile. Okay, so this technical person or this typical expert is whom we call a person having ordinary skill in the art. I will not have that skill. Maybe one of you will, but a lot of us out here will not have that skill. However, to make sure that this can carry on, society can build on it, society can take advantage of the fact that it's now in the public domain. So society is advancing. We need this typical expert who is skilled in this field of technology to be able to carry out or to replicate the invention. So why do we then need to use the information that we get from the patent documents? And I mean, what are the uses that we can have through the patent document? So what this typically does is, I have mentioned before that we do not want to reinvent the wheel. A lot of the time, there are limited resources, be they financial, be they human, etc. Okay, so we're not trying to then do what has already been done. The patent document will give us the information that, perhaps we thought we were going to put this bit of, I don't know, gadget in the rainmaking machine, but now through our patent searches, we see that it's already been done. So moving on, we need to then perhaps tweak it or perhaps find a totally new area to go into. Okay, so you always have to bear at the back of your mind whilst you're doing your research, your searches, etc. You don't want to reinvent your wheel. It is a waste of your time. It is a waste of your resources, and you don't want to do that. So patent documents, the information you retrieve from these patent documents are what will help you to not reinvent the wheel. The document is also going to help you to develop new solutions. Okay, so perhaps you find out that, hey, we were thinking of this rainmaking machine for only this region. However, we can see that it's going to be relevant elsewhere as well. Okay, so information that you retrieve from patent documents give you this, I don't want to say control, but it gives you the information to make informed choices on what your next steps are going to be. So our next scenario, we've already done our searches, right? We've seen the documents that are relevant in the wind turbine technology field, but we figured that, okay, we're happy with what we found out. Let's build on that a bit, right? So let's say right now a manufacturer is looking to identify new technologies. Okay, so we've already created these wind turbines. However, we want to improve them, for example. Okay, we don't want to necessarily take all the time to pick up or to create new things, especially if they're already out there. Okay, so what we want to do, what we want to see is what are the new tech, what documents are out there, what patents are in the public domain that perhaps
we could use, okay? And we also want to know what we can exploit freely. So basically, after the 20 years of protection, automatically that patent is going to fall into the public domain. Public domain is basically a space where there is no longer protection for the invention. I don't want to say a patent because technically speaking, it's no longer a patent because it has fallen into the public domain, okay? So we want to know what technologies are out there that have already been protected at some point, but now have fallen into the public domain, which then gives us the ability, if you will, to use these without being sued, okay? So we go through our patent search structure again, okay? And we see here that, okay, this looks sort of interesting. This is to do with a bearing for an adjustable rotor blade on a wind energy plant. Remember, we're trying to find technologies out there or patents that are no longer patented because they've fallen into the public domain, okay? So here we see that, okay, this is an area, this is a technology that could be of interest to us. We see that it was initially granted in Australia. So, okay, we're like, okay, it was granted then. And then we move on. And this is all information you will find in the patent search, okay? So we see here, we're like, okay, so it fell into it ceased. So basically what happened was the applicant decided, or let's say the owner, because they're no longer an applicant, they're now a patent owner. The patent has fallen into the public domain because it ceased. The owner decided or did not pay any renewal fees within the prescribed time. I'm sure you all know that in order to ensure that your intellectual property carries on, apart from copyright, but let's not get muddied at all. Industrial property, let's talk about it that way, okay? So industrial property, which is to do with patents, trademarks, designs, and I don't want to go into other parts of IP, but basically industrial property normally requires the owner or the applicant to pay certain renewal fees, okay? So you've received the exploitation rights, right? Do you still want to continue it? If you want to continue it, you have to ensure that you maintain your renewal fees. If you don't, it falls into the public domain and it belongs to everyone else, okay? So that's also a decision you will have to make to ensure that, okay, this year we have to pay this amount. Next year is this. You have to feature that into your research decisions, your plans to protect your invention, okay? So we see here that we can actually use this patent or this invention because it's now no longer protected. It has fallen into the public domain. So we know that if we do go to the document and we decide to use certain parts of it, we're not stepping on anyone's foot. We are not infringing on anyone's rights. So what do patent documents help us to do? They help us to identify inventions in the public domain. We don't want to reinvent the wheel, as we said. So is it possible that there are certain inventions out there that we can use? You know, we can take pieces of this, and whatever, and add them all together so that we can also have a new application or a new technology that we may want to protect through a patent. It also reduces the risk of patent infringement. You do not want to be sued by a patent owner for infringing their rights, okay? It also helps you to determine the patentability of your inventions, okay? So you've come up with this rainmaking machine, you know, you've done your research, you've done your searches, you are right now at a point where you're deciding, okay, perhaps there's certain other elements that we can add in it. You know, let's go find out whether we can use certain, you know, technologies that have fallen into public domain, okay? What you will also find out is you will get a better understanding of whether your patent or whether your application, let's put it that way, your invention is going to be patentable. So irrespective of whether you have taken pieces from certain inventions that have fallen in the public domain, you also still have to make sure that your patent is new. It has industrial applicability. So basically it's solving a certain problem. And it is non-obvious. Okay, so basically we talked about this typical expert. Would they have known that this is what could be done to resolve this problem? If the answer is yes, then it's not non-obvious, right? So basically, you need to ensure that you are still bearing in mind that you still have to still pass the three-tier step: the novelty, industrial applicability, and non-obviousness. Okay. Those are the elements that are needed for any technology or invention to even stand a chance of being protected or granted as a patent. So this also then helps you to draft strong patent applications. You will know how to frame your claims to make sure that you're not falling into the scope of someone else's patent, etc. And then also the validity of existing patents, okay? You are able then to go through the patent documents and figure out whether they are still valid, etc. So, next scenario. We've done all these searches. We are now gurus in doing searches, patent searches, we're fine. We've done our searches to find out what technologies have fallen into the public domain. We are happy with ourselves. However, we have a little chit chat amongst ourselves, okay? Guys, we think this is going to be a great patent when hopefully it is actually granted. However, do we really think that we have the skills to perhaps create these or to build these inventions if they're products, or to continue if they're processes, okay? So we talk amongst ourselves, why don't we go do another search? Okay, let's try and figure out people, competitors or partners who are out there. Okay, one, we don't want to compete too much with people who have probably taken over the market. Okay, what we want to do is to try and find a niche aspect of the market to get your protection in. Okay, so we discussed this. Okay, let's see whether we can find potential partners. We can sign licensing agreements. We already have a patent. We can then give the licensee or licensees, depending on whether you want to just have one licensee, or you also have the option to have multiple licensees across geographical spaces. Okay, so what we're trying to do is let's try and figure out whether we want to get partners into this journey we're taking, or we know we can carry out the products or the processes, etc. But we want to know who our competitors are, okay, before we start going into the market. So again, you go through your patent search structure, and then you realize that, there are quite a few people in this space that we're trying to go into, okay? So what you get from the analytics of your research, you will see the countries, you will see how many patents there are, you will understand the applicants, inventors, etc. Okay, these are all information that you will get from your patent search, depending on the different services you decide to use on, and my friend was going to talk about this later on, the patent scope. So what happens as well is you are able to understand how the filing trends, what have been these trends over a certain period of time, okay? How has this technology fared over a certain period of time? Perhaps it started really badly or very slowly, and then it shot up, but then it goes back down. So this helps you to understand how the trends have carried on over a certain period of time. Also tells you who the main applicants have been filing in this space. And then also the countries. So if, for example, you decide, you know what, we don't just want to protect our patents in India. We want to go beyond. So it will help also to understand which countries have already done this or are in this space, etc. And what markets can attract you if you decide to go into those spaces. We also have the opportunity to find out who the specific applicants are. I mentioned a few minutes ago that you can do searches to help you to figure out who your potential competitors are, or who the competitors are, who's already in the market, and who are potential partners as well. So information that you get through a patent document will help you to specify, to go over trends in specific areas of technology, helps you to understand or to figure out whether you want to actually license your patent to possible licensees or partnerships you can get into. And it also helps to figure out which areas your competitor have been, doing their research. So finally, we're going to talk about an electronics company, okay? And they are doing R&D, and they want to find information about their secret competitor. Always go back to your patent search strategy. It helps you to regroup. It helps you to focus on the steps that you're taking. So we look here, we see, okay, the gestures for touch-sensitive input devices. It's an area that you realize it is relevant to your research or to your technology, etc. You get information here. You realize that this particular patent application was published in February 2006. Okay, it's relevant to what your technology is, but you realize that they only announced it in 2007, so almost a year after it was actually published. So we sit down sometimes like, okay, patent documents, it's only technical, it's only relevant to technical experts, etc. But it's not, okay? Researchers, inventors, entrepreneurs, etc. are all, it's relevant to all these areas of experts, because they are, researching, the policymakers, inventors, etc. The information you get through patent documents are going to help you to be able to decide whether you're going to go further, whether you're going to join forces with other partners, or whether you're going to say, okay, no, this is not the area we should go into. You're going to stop and then perhaps start your research in a different area. So with that, I would like to thank you all for your attention. If there are any further questions that relevant to this presentation, please feel free to send an email to tisk@whiteboard.int, and we will be more than happy to answer. Okay.
Thank you, Nina. That was fantastic. And I can see the reactions coming through from the participants as well, who are grateful for this information. It's so important to understand the value of how to search and what you're really looking to invent. And it was important that you highlighted not reinventing the wheel, and really understanding those criteria of patentability, specialty, novelty, right, and inventive step. So that was wonderful. We're going to hand over now to, thank you, and I hope you can stay with us for a little bit of Q&A.
Yes,
I don't see a lot of, yes, thank you, that's wonderful. I don't see too many questions yet in the chat box, but again, like yesterday's session, where we had a good discussion, we talked about the PCT, the fundamentals of patents, which are very much linked to Nana's presentation today, and how to file PCT electronically. We had some good questions and chat in the box. So don't feel shy to send your questions there, and we can address them during the Q&A. Okay, lovely. So I'd love to invite now our next expert, who is Ms. Lakshmi Supriya that is joining us. With the pleasure to have her here with us this afternoon, of course, in your local time in Tamil Nadu, that will share some information with us on technology innovation and support centers. So Naina talked about these. These are WIPO TISCs, TISCS, Technology Innovation Support Centers. What are they about, and what is the value of the information that is provided and the technical know-how? So welcome to Lakshmi.
Thank you, Anjali, and a very good afternoon to all the participants. It's a pleasure being here. Let me first try sharing my screen. Oops, sorry, wrong. So as I'm trying to share my screen, if there are any questions the participants have, Anjali, is it okay if they ask during my session? I'm okay with that if that works for you.
Absolutely, we can make that.
Okay.
It could be more interactive. So everyone, feel
Yes,
free.
please
If during the
do.
presentation something comes to mind while we're on a particular topic in the present, please just feel free to write that in the chat. I'll keep an eye on it while
Yes.
Lakshmi is presenting. Okay?
Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
wonderful. Thank you. We can see your screen well.
Okay, perfect.
Awesome.
All right, so as Anjali mentioned, I'm going to talk to you all a little bit about one of the services that WIPO provides, the Technology and Innovation Support Centers. And Nana talked a little bit about that. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about how these centers actually can help you use not just patent information, but also other types of IP. Just to give you a brief background about who I am, I work in the patent analytics section at WIPO. My background is I am a scientist by training. I have a PhD in polymer science and engineering, and I worked in R&D for about 10 years as an inventor, entrepreneur, large companies, small companies, before sort of pivoting to patent information, use of patent information. I'm a registered patent agent in India. And I've been with WIPO doing some of the analysis and analytics work with Nana just mentioned towards the end of a presentation for about 3 or actually 4 years now. Okay, so what are TISCs? So TISCs are, as the name says, Technology and Innovation Support Centers, and they are really defined by the services that they provide, which are IP based. So whether it be patents or trademarks or designs, GIs, any other copyrights, any other types of IP. The services are provided by experts, and which means that the type of services provided is of extremely high quality, so that the researchers, academics, entrepreneurs, inventors are sure that the type of service they are getting is consistently of high quality, the type of service, advice, support. And the key to all this is local. So these are services that are provided locally. And so the TISCs are really a national network. So these services are provided locally so that they are accessible to people, and then they can be tailored to the specific needs of the country or the situation that the inventors or researchers need. And ultimately, their intent to help in critical phases of the innovation process, and ideally, and they fill the gaps in the IP and innovation ecosystem that might otherwise prevent them from bringing their innovations to the market. And what I show here is this circle of the innovation ecosystem. You start with some innovative research, which means you're creating IP. And then the question becomes, how do you manage your IP? And then how do you create value from that IP? And Nana talked a little bit about the use of patent information in creating a value. And then which again, once you create value, then you can go back to creating more new products and more innovative research. So how does this actually happen? So the basic or the core service provided by TISC is innovation support. And this includes the foundation is really general advice on intellectual property and access to an assistant in using be it patent information, scientific information, technical databases, and ultimately it supports innovation and promoting IP awareness. So what this, like Nana was talking a little bit about all the different databases, how you go to search, where do you search? So that this is what the TISC can provide support with. Now that's really the basic foundation level of service that all TISCs provide. Now, when you go down, as the TISCs become mature, additional services can be provided. For example, they can use searches or analytics. Analytics is what I do at WIPO. So that's supporting innovative research. Then when you create the IP, TISC can also help with advice on IP filing and prosecution or patentability searches, novelty searches. And then going further down the IP or further beyond in the IP innovation ecosystem, and especially in IP management. Once you have IP, you've created IP, you need to be able to manage it. And this can provide support in doing that. For example, you need help with technology transfer or licensing, or validity searches, freedom to operate searches. This touches again a little bit upon what you heard in the last presentation, and advise on commercialization. So what this means is that this serve as a flexible platform for a variety of services and can ultimately provide support to academics, researchers, innovators, entrepreneurs, inventors throughout the innovation circle, from the idea to the product. How does this happen? So if we look at the TISC global community, there are more than 650 TISCs worldwide. There are worldwide about 94 national networks and 4 regional networks. And in the last year itself, the TISCs received over 2 million inquiries for all the support services which I just mentioned. And ultimately, so what this means, this is an unparalleled opportunity for cooperation and learning in the development of TISC services to support innovation and innovators worldwide. So if you look at what how the TISC network looks in India, there are 12 TISCs in India, and most of them, so the way the TISCs are organized is that they are organized into national networks. And there is a focal point, which is the TISC focal point for India is CPAM. And WIPO works with this focal point, CPAM, to support institutions that host a TISC. So the TISCs, as you can see, in many cases, they are associated with universities or research institutes. Or sometimes you can have industry support institutions also. And so you have there's also the information on where you can find more information about TISCs in India. And one of the TISCs in India is in Anna University in Tamil Nadu, who might be close to many of you if you want to look and find, and you need support in protecting or creating or finding value from your innovations. And how does WIPO provide support? So there are three pillars by which WIPO supports the TISC. The first is training, and the second is the resources, and then the third is networking. So let me just explain what I mean by that. So as I mentioned, the TISC provide a host of different services depending upon the capabilities of the staff. And now the capabilities of the staff need to be improved, added upon at different points of time. And WIPO helps support, train the TISC staff in different types of knowledge skills. So these are just some examples that you can see of our trainings that we've had in the past. And again, the training provided to each TISC or each national network could vary depending on their particular needs. And if you remember, one of the key themes or the ideas behind TISC that it is local. So what you need here in Tamil Nadu, the support that you need may be slightly different from what somebody needs in an inventor or an innovator needs in, say, Rajasthan, or maybe completely different from what somebody needs in, say, the Philippines or some other or somewhere in Africa. And so the idea behind these national networks and being local is that you can provide services and you can provide the training that is required by each network and each TISC. So what do I mean by on-site by training? So we provide on-site training in things like patent, basic training on what is a patent, what is patent documentation, what is the basic concept and skills required to even read a patent document, and where do you go to search and find information on patents. So you're looking at all the different databases. Nana showed an example of PatentScope. There are a whole bunch of different other databases that you can go and find information on. And so this is the basic first level of training, and this is the what we call the core services. Is WIPO provides the training and capacity, builds capacity in patent documentation, basic concepts and databases. Now, going a step further, we also provide training to TISC staff on how to search for patents. Now, search, when you talk about a patent search, the end objective could be very different on what you're looking for. It could be a state-of-the-art search. So if you're, for example, if you're an inventor and you want to see what is out there, is what you're inventing or you're interested, an area that you're interested in, is that something that's already out there? Are you reinventing the wheel? Which is, again, something that Nana touched upon, that you don't want to reinvent the wheel. So that's a state-of-the-art search. Or if you already have an invention, now you want to file for a patent, it's to search for novelty or patentability. And the other third thing is very key is when you have, when you want to use something, again, this goes back to patents in the public domain, for example, like to operate. Now, patents, if you recall, are very jurisdictional. So if you file a patent in India, it is valid only in India. If you want to sell your product in some other country, you will have to file a patent in that country, or anybody else can use your product or service in that country. So that's freedom to operate. And then you building on that, now we also provide some more advanced services as the need may require. For example, in patent analysis or patent analytics, which is what I do at WIPO. This is to extract significantly more insights and from the trends and the statistics that you see in patent information. So we do provide training for TISC and TISC staff who are ready to, who have done the foundations and they're ready to take the next step to advance their capabilities. Similarly, in IP management, commercialization, and licensing, or how do you help support new product development? Now, these are all the types of trainings that WIPO provides TISCs on site. In addition to this, the WIPO Academy has a lot of distance learning courses, this is remotely available. Some of examples related to patents are listed here, which are also available for TISC staff. Are there any questions? I just want to take a moment here to see if there are any questions.
At the moment, Lakshmi, we don't have questions in the chat box.
Okay, cool.
Anyone?
Thank you.
Anyone?
Or if
Anyone?
anybody wants to
Yes.
unmute themselves and ask, that's fine too.
Yeah. Anyone, feel free if you have and even an observation about, as you
Good
know,
afternoon,
we're speaking to ITNT, and you're very well
Good afternoon, ma'am.
familiar with your local TISC in Chennai. So if you have questions even
Hello, good
about
afternoon.
that. Yes, yes. Good
Yeah,
afternoon.
this is Bahruddin from Chennai.
Mhm.
So it's a
Hello.
nice presentation. I have one question. The services, what you're mentioned right now, is it for individual or for any organization you will support, ma'am?
So the TISCs are, for example, the closest TISC to you would be based in Anna University. So the TISCs support anybody, whether it is an individual or an organization or an
Okay.
entrepreneur, anybody.
Okay. Are we need to pay any charges for these services? If you
I,
are,
that is something that you will have to find out from each TISCs and how much are the charges and what is happening.
okay. So
What
shall
is
we
needed.
approach them directly by person to visit an university?
Yes, I don't see why not.
Okay.
And I think
Okay.
it would be best if I can jump in to just contact the organizer directly at ITNT.
Yeah.
Because they're
Okay.
located in the Anna University. They can
Okay.
assist you with that sort of question as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
that
you.
would be
Thank
useful
you.
because I don't know the exact contact of who the person would be to contact at the TISC in Anna University. So maybe the organizer would be a good path
Understood.
to get there. Yeah,
Understood. Understood. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks
sure.
for asking your question. Well, actually, there's one question that came up, I think,
Mhm.
related to TISC.
Okay.
How to join for an on-site training. You must have
Again,
mentioned that.
yes. This would, again, you will have to contact the local TISC to
Right.
find. So as I mentioned, so WIPO works with the India focal point, which is CPAM, and to organize, who's really our contact point to work with the TISCs. And then the TISCs, for example, if they're organizing or interested in organizing a session, they would go through TPAM and then come to, which would then bring it back to WIPO, and that's how the process works. So if you as an
Right.
individual or an academic or a researcher are interested in a training session, you would have to first contact the local TISC here.
Right.
For all of you, I think it would be the Anna University, and see and express your interest. And hopefully that will go to CPAM, and through CPAM, it will come to us. And I will also, that's the formal way of doing it. But I would suggest if you're interested, so the one thing that we're also looking for is to understand what the gaps are in the national network here in India. And if you have any suggestions or needs, then please feel free to write to us at tisk@wipo.int with your request. So at least we can start collecting and understanding what the needs are and gaps are, and think of ways of addressing them. Does
Thanks,
that answer the
Lakshmi.
question, Anjali?
Yes, I think I don't see another hand. Please feel free to raise your hand for the one that did ask about the on-site training, if you need any follow-up. But I think it's a good point is because we tailor to our WIPO TISCs around the world, as Lakshmi said, you can always tell us if you see some sort of leeway or gap where we can fill in and we can supplement. We have another question, which is, what kind of support do TISCs provide in the commercialization phase, especially for early stage technologies? It's quite a broad one, and maybe just one or two points, I think, Lakshmi, for the sake of time.
Yes,
maybe one or two
absolutely.
tips. Yeah, thank you.
So again, the types of services, and I'm talking very generally over the world rather than, but I don't have particular information on the TISCs in India at this point of time on my hand. So generally, you could think of things like, if you were thinking of commercialization, the first step would be to see if how do you want to commercialize it? So would it be an outright sale of the patent, or are you trying to actually sell the product? If you're selling the
Right.
product, that's a different thing. Then you have to go through
Right.
the patent searches that Nana mentioned, for example, freedom to operate.
Right.
And then comes the next part, that if you want to license your IP rather than making and selling the product itself, then it would have to go through some support where you have to find who is a licensor first. Again, that goes back to search and analytics, and then draw up the contracts, which would the licensee-licensor agreement. So these are things that the TISC, these are just very general points that the TISCs can support with. And like I said, there are different levels of TISCs all over the world, and some may provide more advanced services than others. And if this is a need, then please do write to us, and we will see where in India, which TISCs can provide this service.
Right. So we have one other. Let's take another question, which
Sure.
is, and since Lakshmi, yeah, let me just, I think we have one, yeah, audio to mute. Since you are a patent analyst, since you mentioned your background, Lakshmi, someone has asked, what are some things that we need to take care of during search phase, or maybe a tip that you can provide when someone is starting out on their patent search, which I think actually Naina has covered quite a bit already.
Okay.
So you may
Okay.
want to refer just to the person that has asked the question. Also think of Naina's presentation. But yes, Lakshmi, if maybe there's a tip you can share about what are some of the things to look out for during your search phase.
Sure.
Very broad.
Ultimately, it is. And
Yeah.
the answer to that would be, it depends on the type of search you're doing. And each type of search that I mentioned a couple of things about, are you looking for state of the art? Are you looking for patentability, or is it patentable? Are you looking for freedom to operate? The strategy for all the three would be completely different, with the freedom to operate being extremely strict. You cannot miss even one patent. So if you're looking for freedom to operate in India, if you miss one patent and you start selling your product, it might lead to a case of infringement. So there you have to be very, 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 very sharp.
Right.
In contrast, if you're looking for, say, state of the art, there you're looking for more general trends. So even if you miss a few patents, it does not matter. And when we do analytics, it's mostly we try to get 80% of the patents, 80 to 90% of the patents. And that's fine. It's a more bigger, broader search. So the tip that I have is really think about what your end goal is, and then tailor your search to that. Because if you do an FTO and do a broad search, that's a complete waste of time. I mean, it can lead you into legal trouble.
Good advice. Good advice. Thanks, Lakshmi. I hope that's answered most of our questions, and I do see some thank yous to you. For those that need any follow-up, if there's any follow-up on those questions, please feel free. We can address those a little bit later in the session. Okay, great. And super questions. So shall we continue on?
Yes,
Lakshmi?
absolutely. We can go. And
all right.
Okay, so I was talking about some of the trainings that WIPO provides, and there's also what's called an e-tutorial. Again, this is a tutorial. It's a self-paced, self-learning tutorial, and what this does is it's an interactive tutorial which tells you what patent information is and how to use them. So key concepts and using scenarios, for example, and then putting these into practical concepts so that it allows you to also test your knowledge. This is again available at the mentioned website, and if you're interested in learning more, this is free. This is you can take it at your own pace, and this will really help you understand and feel a little bit more confident when you're using patent information. And if you finish this course, then you can also get a certification of successful completion from the WIPO Academy. So I mentioned all the different types of online resources that are available for you to use if you want to learn more about how to use patent information and derive value from them. Okay, I'm going to change gears a little bit and talk about a new program that WIPO has, which is called TISC certification. So now TISC staff are experts, and they have different specializations. They can provide, yes, of course, the basic patent information, and they can also provide specialized services that I was talking about, patentability or other specialization, IP management, commercializing, licensing, whatever it is. And so what WIPO has done is to provide what's called a TISC certification to TISC staff. This is to allow the staff to obtain a recognition for the knowledge and skills that they have acquired through all the either in-person trainings or the work that they've been doing, or the DL courses or long distance courses that they've been training. And ultimately, this is to help reinforce TISC capabilities and continue enhancing them. So this is a new program which has just been piloted in 4 countries right now. And we started with what's called the foundation certificates, which is really the basic skills that, like I said, which is and the basic foundation that I talked about of what the core services of TISC are. And later, depending on how, and the next phase of this project is to get specialization certificates. And again, this builds on the competencies that the staff have acquired after completing their foundation certification. And so, for example, the first certification, the specialization certification to be rolled out will be on patentability search, with more to come in due course. And I have to be clear that this certification is only available for TISC staff, so members who are working in a TISC, and not to the general public. So other resources that are available for to reinforce the training is the guide to using the WIPO guide to using patent information, and Nana talked quite a bit about this. And there's also a resource as a guide, a booklet that you can download from the WIPO, the TISC website on WIPO, where you can look at, you can read more and understand more about it. And similarly, there's another guide on understanding industrial property. And ultimately, this will help support learning and also contribute to the operation of the TISC itself. And we have a whole bunch of different resources that are available online. So if you're using, let's say if you're interested in general IP, there is, I talked about the understanding intellectual property and finding technology using patents, or guide to patent information, and identifying inventions in the public domain. Now, this is something that I think is quite interesting, because I really like this, because if you think about a patent is granted for 20 years. Once it is expired, the technology in there is free for anybody to use, and that's what we call invention in the public domain. And sometimes the patent can lapse because of various reasons. So you don't have to wait 20 years to use the invention. You can, maybe in 10 years, the patent is lapsed and you're aware, and the information is public, which I think is the key of patents, is that the information becomes public. Yes, there is a restriction in time on how, when everybody can use it, but that's the beauty of patents. It supports innovation and creates new technologies, even though there are a lot of restrictions for some time. And on patent analytics, we do have a lot of reports which are called available, and also how to prepare those reports. These are a little bit more advanced use of patent information, and so for example, guidelines for preparing patent landscape reports, or this manual on open source tools for patent analytics, which I think many of you might find interesting because it tells you, or it gives you some information on open source free tools that you can use to either search for information, analyze the information, and also when you're making charts or when you're showing the information graphically, please do take a look at this. And I think there might be some nuggets of information that you can find here. And the good thing is it's all open source and free. And this is just a representative example. This is by no means exhaustive, and you can find more information on the TISC website on all the different resources. And again, this is something I mentioned, like this using inventions in the public domain. And again, this came out from a need that was seen, where especially when you wanted to create value from IP. Apart from this publication, there is also a toolkit which complements the publication, for a toolkit for using inventions in the public domain. And what this toolkit includes is are tools to facilitate systematic collection and analysis of data, and which can help support the decisions that you need to make when you're developing a new product or a service, for example, using what's in stage gate process, which is a typical process which is used in project management. And they also tools which will help you create a framework for for developing a new product, including what is the customer needs, what are their preferences, what is your competitive advantage, how do you reduce risk of any IP infringement. And you can take like I said, please do take a look at this. This I think is of extremely valuable resource which will help you enhance your research, innovation, your business, entrepreneurship, everything. Now, the other thing that we have is patent databases. Now, I keep mentioning about different types of patent databases. Now, where do you find to go what it is? And so if you go to WIPO, inspire.wipo.int, it shows you a list of all the different types of databases. For example, I can just see you can see what these are the different databases, whether they're free for anybody to use, or do you have commercial, and or you have to pay for it. And then you can have create alerts by, do you want legal status, or do you want general search? What is your search history, for example? It can save all that. So I do recommend taking a look at this if you're just interested in and trying to find out what tools or databases, where do you go to look for information? And sometimes that can be a challenging part to start with, but this will help you and guide you. The other thing we have is the Patent Register portal. And what this is really, it gives you legal status information from many, I think it's 200 jurisdictions all over the world, the countries that are stated. And this is very useful sometimes if you want to see, and as you can see on the right, you have an example of the type of information that is provided, especially, and this can be quite useful when you're starting to do a freedom to operate search and you're checking to see if the if you're free to sell the product in a jurisdiction, for example. Again, the link is there, or you can go through WIPO Inspire to get to the patent register portal. Now, something else that WIPO also provides is arbitration and mediation. So this is a dispute resolution mechanism for IP and technology, which is an alternative to going to courts. So this is by mediation or arbitration, and a large part of the work that we do in the AMC is also domain name disputes, all the internet URLs, there are disputes relating to that. And you can find more information on our WIPO website. And there is a reduction in fees for TISC staff or TISCs. Now, you will have to find, I don't know the complete details of what this actually entails. And if this is something any of you are TISC, this is only for TISC, and there are the rules are quite strict, I believe. But if you are interested and if you need some support in this is available. And if you have any questions, of course, you can write to us at the email tisc@wipo.int. Now, I talked about two of the pillars, if you remember, when I talked about it, the training and resources. And the third pillar, without which I think the house that I showed would probably fall, is networking. Now, it is, like I said, in India, there are 12 TISCs in different parts of the country, and each TISC and local, I keep emphasizing the word local. And what that means is each TISC have their needs, and they have identified problems and solutions to their local needs. And the idea, WIPO also helps bring TISC networks together to share this information. And so again, we're not reinventing the wheel. And this again enhances capacity and helps the TISCs grow, which means that services provided improve and increase, which is again helps the innovators and hence the innovation ecosystem. And like I said, it's also networking also relates to, like I said, to ultimately that's the managerial capacities, how operations of the TISC and the types of services TISCs provide. So with that, we do have regional conferences in Africa, the Arab states, Central Asia, Latin America, and Southeast Asia and Southeast Asia. Apart from the in-person networking, if you go to the WIPO website, there's also an e-TISC, which people can use, and this is open to everyone. You can see the forum and the different groups, and there's also announcements on events. And one particular thing I would like to point out about is Ask the Expert sessions, where experts answer usually people's questions. And Nana usually runs these sessions, and she's in charge of this, and they have been extremely helpful. And you have things like we run sessions on commercialization or finance, IP financing, for example, or how do you commercialize, or new product development. A lot of different topics. The topics can arise in part from interest or gaps that either we have identified or the TISC networks have identified. And that's why, again, I would like to emphasize if you see some need that is not fulfilled by the TISC, then please do feel free to write to us. It helps us shape our programs in the future to address needs and gaps much better. And if you want to learn more about what the TISCs are doing, the TISCs publish the annual reports. The last one was just published a few days ago just before the WIPO assembly, like two weeks ago, 10 days ago, and they're available online, so you can see about this. So this is all over the world, and you can see what different parts of the world this network is doing. And with that, I just would like to thank you for your attention and your questions. And WIPO has, and just emphasize that WIPO has a wide range of services that support innovators and the innovation ecosystem. So again, if you have any needs or gaps that you see, please do feel free to write to us. And again, I'm happy to take any more questions.
Super. Thank you very much, Lakshmi. We had quite a
Thanks,
few
Anjali.
questions earlier. Now we have a lot of thanks to you for a very good session, very nicely presented for
Thank you
us, very
so much.
very clear. And I've also left in the chat box, everybody, the links that Lakshmi mentioned, for example, identifying inventions in the public domain, where you can
Oh, that's
link to the
awesome.
guide. Yeah,
Thank
where you
you,
can
Anjali.
download that. And we had one question about how to contact the TISC. The TISCs are
Mhm.
published always on WIPO's website.
Yes.
So when you go to one of the links that Lakshmi mentioned, or even the link I've sent you now will link you, you'll see all the TICs around the world in the various countries. And I have included for you your local one here in Chennai, which is the TISC, WIPO TISC in Tamil Nadu, in Chennai, sorry. So thank you, Lakshmi. That was wonderful. If anyone has questions that come to mind, just feel free to ask them as we continue with the session, and we can always address those at a later stage. Okay?
Thank you
I
so
don't
much.
see any new ones. Thank you. Thanks to you. A lot of information to take advantage of for everyone joining today, working in this fantastic field.
It's been a
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Thank you again.
Thank you, Lakshmi. We're always happy to have you. So Sandrine will be joining us next, and I believe she's here online. I'll see her. There she is. Hi, Sandrine. Morning to you, and of course, afternoon again to all of our participants in India, in
Good
Chennai.
afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Anjali.
Yes, good to see you. So
Good to see
Sandrine will, yes, Sandrine will be joining us as one of our experts working on patent scope. And so patent scope was mentioned quite a few times by my colleagues. Also during yesterday's session, I spoke about patent scope when I talked about the PCT system. Where do the PCT international applications appear? Where are they published weekly? So today, the idea is to keep up with today's theme of looking at patent searching databases that are very relevant for you, all of you working in your fields. So Sandrine will give us an overview of patent scope and some of those key features. So let's welcome her to today's session. Thanks, Sandrine.
Thank you, Anjali. Good afternoon, everyone. So today I will show you a little bit about our WIPO global database for patents called Patent Scope. I will introduce you to Patent Scope. Maybe you've used it before. It's a global patent database. It will help you explore inventions, you can monitor trends, and it will also help you support your IP strategy. You saw some of Patent Scope already in Nana's slides. If we have time at the end, we will do some examples together, and I will invite you to search with me. You can do this on your laptop, or if you have just a phone, this is also fine. So this session, we will focus on the disclosure aspects of patents that Nana mentioned. Patent scope is where invention become public knowledge. This is where you can see all the PCT published applications. And while today we'll focus on patent scope, I also like to mention that WIPO offers two other free tools to explore trademarks, the global brand database, and to explore design, the global design database. They work on the same principle as patent scope. They're free of charge, and they include both WIPO data and data shared by national and regional offices. If you're interested in the brands and design, there are free webinars available. So now, by now, you know why you should use IP databases. This was covered already by our two speakers. It is to avoid reinventing the wheel. You see that we use the same terminology. You can avoid legal trouble. You can stay competitive. You can find trends. You can also follow what your competitors are doing. There are different ways to search patent information. I listed a few here. The ones with the little star you cannot use, unfortunately, in patent scope at this stage, maybe in the future, but the rest of the strategy can be used in PatternScope. You can search by keyword, you can search by name, by date, by classification, by chemical compound. You can also use pattern families. This is what Nana showed you when you had a document in a foreign language, and then looking at the family, you could find document in other languages like English. And then also we have cross-lingual information, which allows you to find document in other languages. So in this session, I will show you a little bit of this. And let's drop right into PatternScope. This is what PatternScope looks like. Nana had a couple of slides, so you kind of familiar already with what PatternScope looks like. It's available free of charge at the URL you see on the slide. What you do in PatternScope stays confidential between you and WIPO, and it's available to all provided you have an internet connection. When you do a pattern search, it is key to know what information you're actually searching. All databases have a different coverage, and therefore the information you will find will be different. In PatternScope, you will find all the published PCT applications, and then you will find data shared by national and regional offices. This includes their own data and the national phase entries of the PCT application. And then you will also find some non-patent literature. You can see the coverage in detail in the PatternScope help. And then using this top menu, you can go to data coverage. And here you will find the data coverage with different items. First of all, the national collection. This is where you see the global picture of what is included in PatternScope. We have data from India, which can be useful to you. This means that you can use PatternScope to actually search Indian data. You have the total number of documents. What you have to know is in PatternScope, data is aggregated. Therefore, we only have one document per publication. We don't publish the A1, A2, and A3. We publish only one document. And then on the side, you have here all the different countries that contribute to PatternScope. This evolves with time. We hope always to add more collection. By default, you will search in all collections, but you have a way to select. You can select one or more collection by just going to the office. And then you will find this in the different interfaces so that you can focus on one specific collection. And you can still do that in the result list if you perform your search in all the collections, but then you want to focus on a specific one. You can go to this refine options and then select one collection. I also mentioned that we have non-patent literature. Here you have a list of the publishers we currently have for PatternScope. We also included articles from Wikipedia. This was done using an in-house algorithm to select the technical and scientific literature. And then we have the contribution from those publishers. If the publisher has a paying access, you will be able to find the document, but to read it, you will have to actually also pay. This is not preventing you from paying, it just helps you search the information. And then, of course, we have the national phase entries of the PCT. This is also interesting to see what information we have. Some offices share the information. They have different schedule to share the information, so you can always refer to this page to see the information currently available. All right, so now we know what we're searching. The question is now, how do we search? What can we do in PatternScope for our pattern searches? By default, you will have this screen called simple search. Even if it says simple, you can already do some interesting queries here. The limitation will be that you can search only in one field that you need to select from this drop-down menu. Those fields, they match a part of a patent document. You see the claims, this will search in the claims part of the patent document. For example, if you have a specific number you're looking for, I recommend that you select all numbers and ideas so that the search is targeted. Because if you don't do that, let's take a look at this example. You enter in the front page, which is the default field, and which includes the different fields on that front page. It includes the title, the abstract, the name, and the numbers. You enter microchip because you're interested in that technology. What happens? You will find, of course, documents that contain microchip as part of the invention, but you will also have some applicant's name containing a microchip. This is why it's always best to target the field you're interested in. Here also we added this all classification. When you use patent classification, if you select all classification, your search will be performed in the IPC, the International Patent Classification, the CPC, which is the Cooperative Patent Classification, and FI, which is the Japanese classification. So you have those 8 fields to choose from. It doesn't have to be simple with just one keyword. You can see here I'm using an operator to make sure that my biomarker is near cancer. Biomarker with the double I, sorry about that. This is supported. You can enter quotation mark, you can enter one keyword, you can enter also operators. What you cannot do is having a keyword and a date, because a date is a different field from the full text. If you want to mix, let's say, text and then dates or numbers, you will have to use another search interface that you will find in the search menu. The second step, if you wish, is to go to the field combination. Here you will have different fields available in the different drop-down menus, and then you can enter your criteria. So let's say we're looking for a TVS motor as an applicant. So we select applicant name. We want to see what they published in 2025, and then we have the result. Here you can mix different fields, and you see right away the number of results. This allows you to add more information if you think the number of results is too high. The limitation here will be that you can not mix the operators on the side. You see on the left-hand side, we have the operator AND. This works because it's only AND operators, but I could not say I want an applicant name, a publication date, or let's say some keywords in the English title. This is not going to work. You cannot mix those operator. And this is why we have the advanced search that I will show you in a minute. Let's take a look at this search. Here we will have the results. In the result, we have this very useful button, this graph button that you can click on, and then you will have the analysis. Nana showed some analysis in her presentation. This is where she took it from. And here you can, once you're here, you could say, I want to have all publications related to a specific IPC code. You can click in the column and it will narrow down your searches to that specific IPC code. As I mentioned, if you want to build more advanced queries, like this one here, we have an applicant, and then we want to search either in the English title, this is EN_TI, vehicle or car or bus, But we want also to search in the English abstract those same keywords. So we want to search those 3 keywords, either in the English title or in the English abstract. And then we want a publication date range. Here you have a mix of those operators that I mentioned, and you have to build it here in PatternScope in the advanced search interface. If you're interested in those searches, I run webinars to show you how to do it. And next month we have exercises, the practical sessions. I give exercises, then we look at the solution together so that our user can actually practice. It's one thing to look at what I'm doing on the screen, and it's another thing to do it yourself. So if you would like to join this is also free of charge. And I have 2 sessions with to cover 2 time zones. So I think in India you will be fine to follow one of the sessions. Here in the advanced search interface for the most advanced user, you can enter an unlimited number of search terms. You can enter operators, proximity operators. You can build ranges, use wildcard, etc. And there is a query assistant which will help you enter the fields. It's not always very straightforward. You can just type the name of the field, applicant name, and then PatternScope will turn this into a field. All right, so this is for the search interfaces. There are 2 more options for you to use in PatternScope. This cross-lingual expansion, it's a tool that was developed in-house. It allows you to find not only translation of your term, but also synonyms. Sometimes in patent documents, it's not that straightforward to imagine what the applicant or inventor use as a keyword. So this will help you also. You enter your search like this, shaving head, and then in the result, you will have documents in other languages. If we take a look at the new query, this was done automatically. I enter shaving head, the system found cutting head, and then all the different languages. So this allows you to find documents in other languages. And then in PatternScope, you have the machine translation tool that will allow you to translate the result list, but also the different part of the document. And then for those of you who are interested in chemical compound, there's an interface for PatternScope users. You can upload a structure, you can draw like you would draw on paper, and you can also use common names like aspirin. This is what I did. And this will allow you to find documents in which not necessarily the keyword was used, but the system is capable of recognizing the keyword and transforming it into an INCHI key, which is a textual identifier to find compounds. And then those compounds will be highlighted. So this is how I was able to find this document in Korean, even if I don't speak a word of Korean. All right, so now let's take a look at the result list. No matter which interface you use, you will always have something similar to what you see on the screen. You have here the number of results. Then to open one document, just click on its number. And then depending on the collection, you will have different tabs available. Here it's a PCT application, so we have national phase information, the ISR. Patent family is available for this document. You can use those little arrows to move from one document to another. And then you will have ways to customize to a certain extent what you see on the screen. You can sort your results by publication date, application date. By default, it's done by an algorithm to see the most relevant documents first. You can increase the number of documents you see per page and also the way the information is displayed. I mentioned this button before. If you have a very long query, click on it so that you can see it in full, and then you can also edit it. And then just next to the number of results, you have all those items you can click on any to open this refine option. From here, you could say, oh, I want to have my result grouped by families. You can tick the single family members, and if you want to include non-patent literature, you can also click here in order for your result list to be updated. For logged in users, this means having a WIPO account. It's also free of charge. You can save your searches. If you perform very complex searches, let's say every week, it's a good idea to save those searches in your account so that PatentScope runs them again. When you go to your save searches, you just have to click on the magnifying glass. And once you logged in, you can also download the result list. And if you would like to have also a different display of your result list, you can have on one side the result list and next to it a document opened. This is very useful. You saw it in Nana's slides and I show it already to you. So one more time, the analysis, very useful. It's a table by default. It can be a chart or a time series. And you can use it to narrow down your searches. Clicking on Siemens, the applicant will then show you only documents that have Siemens as an applicant. And then you can select one item per column. The limitation here is that you can only select one. Let's say you want 2 publication dates, then this has to go in your query. This is what the time series looks like, and you can customize this information by going to the settings menu, and then in the result, the group by will be your columns, and then the number of item, the number of information you see in those columns. By default, it's 10, so it might be limited, but you can increase this up to 50. And this is also where you can select the downloaded fields. In PatentScope, you will also find some useful tools, and they're available pretty straightforward in the tools menu. This is where you will find the IPC Green Inventory. This is to facilitate searches for patent information related to environmentally sound technologies. What you have to do is select the topic, and then you click in the PatentScope column, and PatentScope will run this search for you. Then we have something similar for AI. The same principle, you select your topic and then you just click on the title and PatentScope will run this query for you. And then something similar for COVID-19. Same principle, you select your topic and then PatentScope will run it for you. And we also have something similar for SDGs related topics. If we take a look at this one, this is health. You can click on one of them and then PatentScope will run this for you. Some are multilingual, like this one in Chinese. And again, you have the machine translation tool to translate your results. And WIPO Translate is actually available as a standalone tool. You can use WIPO Translate to translate your patent documents. It's for patent documents only. It's been trained on patent documents, so the results are good for patent documents and patent documents only. If you ask Google WIPO Translate to translate I am, it will not be capable. This is not part of what it was trained on. And once you have your translation, it will be next to your original text. The behind the scene, WIPO Translate splits your text into different segments. Those are highlighted in red. And then you have different proposals for the translation. Another tool that I will mention is WIPO Pearl. It's a multilingual terminology portal for scientific and technical terms that are taken from patent documents. This will allow you to find terms in different languages, and with those three dots, you can actually find that term with just one click in PatentScope. And then just to mention the browse menu, this is for you who are interested in the PCT applications. This is where you find all the archive, the sequence listings, and also the national phase entries. And then very useful, the help menu. This is where you can find a lot of information on PatentScope, how to search. You have the user guide, you have some tips and tricks, some practical exercises as well. They look like this, so quite easy to do. If you are into exercises, we have some booklets. They come with solutions so that you can try and then compare your results. We also have a user community on LinkedIn. I would encourage you to join. This is where we advertise the latest features. We also ask some questions in order to improve the user experience. So this is something I would encourage you to join. And maybe we have time for, let's try one little exercises. I would like you to tell me who the top applicant for India is, or how would you approach this? If you were gonna find out who the top applicant for India is in PatentScope, this means in the documents that we have currently in PatentScope, how would you approach this?
You can feel free to write in the chat box if you don't want to unmute. If anyone wants to volunteer and unmute and just take a guess based on Sandrine's presentation in PatentScope. It's all part of the fun. Or you can write in the chat.
I'll
Do we
show
have a
you.
volunteer?
I don't want to put people on the spot. All right, let me show you how you can do this easily in PatentScope. What you have to do, because we're focusing on India, is to first select the collection of India in the offices. And then once you have this selected, the result will focus only on India. And then using our little tool, this graph button, you will be able to find the top applicant. You still have to select India, and then you'll have your answer, which is Qualcomm. Here we go. So this was a little exercise. This is the kind of exercise I do in my webinar next month. They'll be a bit more advanced. So feel free to join if you want to have some practical session with me. And with this, I
Great.
conclude my presentation.
That's excellent, Sandrine, and it's also really interesting. And I see, again, great feedback coming from the participants on the presentation. And you can see how easy it is to search to be able to retrieve that result if you're curious about the top applicant. So good exercises and good practice, I think, for everybody who is encouraged to carry out some more searches on what exists in terms of the technologies in India and abroad in all countries. You can see that you can go in and search not only nationally, but also regional patent collections to come up with your patenting trends and help you to forecast what type of foreign markets you want to protect your inventions in. It was really interesting. Thanks. That also leads us into the Q&A, I believe, Ajit. Unless there are any comments you want to make on some of the presentations we've already heard this morning. Fantastic overview.
Yes, ma'am. So I would like to thank the speakers for today's session. It was really informative.
Yes.
Ms. Sandrine, Ms. Lakshmi Priya, and Ms. Kalam. Yeah, I open it out to the participants. Dear participants, do you have any questions? Please feel free to ask.
We can also unmute microphones if anyone's having a technical issue with that and you'd rather ask your question.
Yes, you
directly.
can raise your hands and we can unmute it from our end.
Yes, as we did earlier with in Nana's session, that's also fine. Yesterday, we had more of our conversation via the chat, so that was also very useful for people to see the questions and be inspired by the questions. So as you heard today, the presentations have complemented what I presented yesterday on the PCT system, and my colleague, Mr. Taegun Kim, had presented on fundamentals of patents. Because here you understand how you can really maximize and make sure you're strategizing when it comes to launching your invention. So how to search, how to avoid common mistakes like reinventing the wheel, how to avoid patent infringement. Of course, we cannot determine the outcomes, but we can always mitigate these circumstances when we make use of patent information and the value of patent data, which is what all of our speakers have showed you today. So please take advantage of these resources that were shared, especially, when we learn about PatentScope, and imagine this is free of charge, and it's a very large database with a wealth of technical know-how and information at the national and regional levels. So I don't see any more questions or new questions. I don't know whether that means people need a break. It is afternoon in India, I know that. And this is the
Yeah.
second of the master class. This is a 2-day master class. So maybe a coffee break and a stretch is needed. And for those of you who may have ideas or observations or questions, you can feel free at any time to send them. We do have one less presentation after the break, which is about IP commercialization. So this is all about strategy. How can you commercialize and exploit the invention? So let's take a break. Ajit, shall we do that?
Sure, ma'am. Sure, ma'am.
And-
We can take a short break.
Wonderful. So in my program, I have us coming back from coffee break at 3:10 p.m. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
After 3. So shall we say we come back, everyone, at 3:10 p.m., which gives everyone good time for a coffee, and we'll continue on with the session. Okay, thanks for joining us. We'll see you soon. And thanks for
Thank
your
you. Thank you.
Super.
Dear participants, please stay on the Zoom call. You can go out for your coffee break, bio break, and come back. So please do not leave the meeting. Please stay on the Zoom call as well. Thank you.